The loudest blow in that meeting wasn't Talbot's words. It was the way he slammed the stack of papers on the conference table, as if the violence could replace the truth printed on our pay stubs. "You'll each sign this acknowledgement," he announced, voice amplified by the ceiling's hard acoustics. "All overtime hours recorded last quarter were voluntary. If you refuse, the company will reconsider your contracts." The conference room sat in a hush so clean you could hear the HVAC turn over. Someone's pen rolled, tapped against the lip of the table, then fell to the carpet with a tiny sound no one dared to retrieve. I tightened my grip on a black binder resting against my knees. In it were neat square letters, my letters, rows of dates and times. Monday 8:12 p.m., Tuesday 9:41 p.m., Saturday 2:06 p.m., 3 hours of unpaid overtime for me alone. In the last quarter, our department had stopped pretending. Deadlines bled into weekends. Just one more push became the way we lived. My name is Daniel Tran, 35 years old, admin operations at Helios Systems. 7 years in, long enough to memorize every stairwell and dead Wi-Fi corner in the building. Long enough to know the difference between an honest mistake and a strategy. Talbot, our department head, let the paper stack tilt in his hand while he watched faces. He was good at that, sensing who could be pushed, who might wobble, who should be isolated later. Beside him, Keen from HR stood with an immaculate smile that never reached his eyes, a smile installed at the factory and never upgraded. He held a clipboard like a clerk in a hospital drama, ready to gather our signatures and file our dignity. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't need to look to know the message, a reminder I had set months ago. Backup binder tonight. I had built my life around reminders now. When to copy my hand notes into the spreadsheet. When to export my inbox. When to take a new set of photos of the posted schedules in case they refreshed conveniently. "The ritual of the wronged. Let's be efficient," Keen said. "Start at the front, pass it back." No one moved. I heard the hiss of the coffee machine in the hall. Talbot's jaw compressed. "We have clients waiting." "This is a formality." Across the table, Mara from procurement swallowed hard. She had 2 kids and a mortgage that went sideways when her husband's shop closed. She wouldn't fight unless someone else reached for the first match. I breathed in. The binder felt heavier than paper. Heavier than evidence. Heavier than everything I hadn't said for 7 years. "Before we sign," I said, my voice steadier than my chest, "we should make sure we agree on what voluntary means." Every head turned, some with relief, some with dread, a few with gratitude so raw it stung to meet their eyes. Talbot's lips flexed toward a smile. "Daniel, was it? We're not litigating language." "We are when the language is all that stands between work and wage." Keen's pen froze over his clipboard. "If this is a concern, we can discuss individually later." "Later," I said, "has been the policy for the last 2 years. Later never comes." A muscle twitched in Talbot's cheek. He tapped the papers into a stack hard enough to create a crisp edge. "Sign now. We'll handle nuances afterward." Nuance. That's what they called it when your hours slipped down the drain. I rested the binder on the table and flipped it open. The pages caught projector light and threw it back in pale rectangles. I had written in a clean, block hand my father used to call engineer writing. Legible under any light, even a flashlight in a power outage. 312 hours for me, I said. Since July. Logged here with dates, tasks, approvals, and screenshots of emails where managers called those hours critical and non-deferrable. I have 12 more binders just like this one. I tapped the stack in my backpack. From 12 people in this department who kept their own records after we noticed the system entries were inconsistent. Keen forced a laugh. You realize manual notes are not the system of record? Right, I said. That must be why the system belongs to you. The projector hummed. Talbot's gaze hopped from me to his peers, measuring. He shifted tactics. We appreciate your initiative, Daniel. If there's an error, HR can correct it, but a town hall is not the venue. It is when the correction depends on the silence. Across the back row, someone clapped once, caught themselves, folded their hands. Talbot tried to move on. As I was saying, our division exceeded goals by 128% without incremental headcount or overtime allocations. Our clients were promised deliverables none of us could make in 40 hours, I said. And when we stayed, we were told to clock out and be team players. A sound like a cough carried from the VP row. Not a cough, a warning. I reached into my bag and placed a plain USB drive beside the binder. Email chain between you and HR. Subject line, if they ask, call it a system glitch. Now the room was quiet for a different reason. Talbot kept his face. Allegations are a serious matter. So is theft, I said. Theft of time is still theft. The first year I worked at Helios, overtime felt like a favor we did each other. I'll stay late for your rollout. You'll cover my morning when my mom has a doctor's appointment. You caught that misprint that saved us a client. I made sure you got credit. The small economy of the decent. The second year, my father had a stroke. I learned how to read lab reports by the vending machine glow at 2 a.m. I learned that the price of a human hour is negotiable until you can't buy it back. By the fourth year, the favors had calcified into policy. Launches were scheduled on Fridays. Sprints spanned holidays. Review cycles accelerated with the precision of a train schedule. During year 5, I noticed the totals in the timekeeping app didn't equal the totals on my pay stub. A small error, I thought. Old data purged. A policy I hadn't read. I sent a polite note to HR. Keen responded with the gif of a spinning hourglass and wrote, "System refresh, give it 48 hours." 48 hours later, the numbers matched, downward. When I raised the mismatch with my lead, he smiled like an older brother explaining taxes. We all smoothed the edges. You'll get it back on the next project. The next project didn't come with an edge. It came with a cliff. In year 6, an engineer in QA, Luis, showed me his own spreadsheet. He kept a tab called Stolen. He pointed to the sum at the bottom. It had more digits than my savings account. I'm not a romantic, he said. I sent this to myself, to my wife, to my mom, and to a lawyer friend. If I disappear, you know why? We laughed. Then we didn't. By the start of year 7, the emails changed tone. No more winks. No more jokes. The voluntary overtime became critical path. The team effort became mandatory availability. When I asked Talbot if we could talk about overtime pay, he said, "Don't become a problem." That night I bought a black binder and a pack of archival pens, because if I was going to be a problem, I wanted to be legible. The system logs could move. The binder did not. Every night, I transcribed hours from memory and from my phone photos of the whiteboards before they got wiped. I printed emails that would age badly and filed them under keywords: promise, coverage, compliance, glitch. I stored a duplicate offsite because I had read too many stories not to. I was not alone. Mara, Luis, Janelle from support, who had mastered 3 time zones and never got paid for any of them. Hector, who slept in his car during a blackout week because commuting wasted 40 minutes of the company's time. Becca, who brought in her toddler on a Sunday and worked with him asleep under her desk, a tiny pair of sneakers sticking out like punctuation. We were not heroes. We were tired. Ellen used to sit 2 pods down from me, the last person to leave most nights. She wore hoodies with the cuffs shredded and hit deadlines like a drummer hits a snare. She left Helios the day she realized she was teaching her replacement without being told she was replaceable. When I texted her a photo of Talbot's voluntary form, she called me within 30 seconds. "If you move," she said, "move all the way." I don't want to sue, I told her. At the time, it was true. "Lawsuits eat time you never get back. You don't have to sue," she said. "You have to expose." "Expose who?" "He'll blame the system." Exposing the story is exposing the people. You're a good writer. Make them read. "Ellen," I said, "I'm not a writer." "You're a son," she said. "Write like one." I put the phone on my desk and looked at my father's photo tacked into the divider, him in a ball cap, grinning with a fish he would claim got heavier every time he told it. He used to say, "If someone steals your tools, you borrow better ones." I looked at the binder. Better tools. After the town hall went sideways, HR tried to shove the toothpaste back into the tube. Keene sent a message with the subject line clarification or overtime acknowledgement. He wrote that the acknowledgement was standard practice to confirm that employees were not compelled beyond policy, which read exactly like something sent to look innocent on a subpoena. By 3 p.m., the CEO, Braddock, released a statement about valuing transparency and commissioning an independent review. The words were correct. The face on the internal video was tight around the eyes in the way of a man who hears the word audit like a fire alarm. Audit meant numbers. I trusted numbers. Numbers did not blush, did not stammer, did not default to glitch. The audit team arrived with laptops and a vocabulary that made Keene over-articulate. He trotted out phrases like data integrity and workflow parity, while I slid my binder into the center of their polished table and said, "Here's my integrity. Here's my parity." They asked if they could photograph the pages. "You can do better than that," I said, and handed them a copy I had stayed up all night making. I gave them a thumb drive with exported emails, calendar invites that contradicted the official hours, screenshots of voluntary meetings scheduled past midnight, tagged as optional and attendance required. When they asked who else had kept records, I looked at Mara. She nodded. We became a line of people laying down evidence the way you lay down bricks to build a path you have to walk together. Talbot avoided me for 2 days. Then he summoned me to his office with a subject line that tasted like a lawyer: alignment conversation. His office was glass on 3 sides. He liked to be watched when he thought he was winning. He gestured to a chair. "You've put us in a difficult position." "Not me," I said. "The facts. I'm willing to entertain the possibility of reconciliation." "Back pay?" I asked. He gave a little smile that showed tooth. "Your tone doesn't help you." My hours didn't help me either. He leaned back, laced his fingers. "Let's speak like adults. You've gained visibility. That has value. There is a version of the story where you parlay this into a lateral move. A new title. Clean slate. You're offering me a promotion not to get paid." He blinked slowly. "I'm offering you a future in which you are not known as the person who burned his house down." I let a silence hang. He mistook it for doubt. "Think about it," he said. "Careers last longer than outrage." My father's stroke didn't. He made a small sound with his tongue, the kind people make when they think you're playing the sympathy card. "Personal circumstances are unfortunate, but they do not change policy." "They change people," I said. "Policy is supposed to follow." He leaned forward, voice soft. "If you take this path, it will get worse before it gets better." "I know," I said. "That's how you know you're on the right one." He dismissed me with a flick of his hand and a smile like a credit card ad. In the hall, Penny from IT caught up to me, eyes wide. "Careful," she whispered. "Security just asked me for your laptop logs." "Let them," I said. I didn't say I gave them. We were a room full of people who had learned to speak in different tenses. What we said, what we logged, what we could prove. The audit team moved fast, which made HR move faster. 2 old cameras appeared over the elevators like prop eyes. A new policy document landed in our inboxes describing a timekeeping procedure that, if it had existed 6 months ago, would have prevented the problem now requiring the policy. A rumor flickered through the cubes that someone had already been selected to replace Talbot if the board demanded a public bone. On Friday night, the lights in the building flickered twice, and the server room doors locked with a harsh thunk. "Fire suppression test," Keene announced. The test somehow coincided with a file deletion event that Penelope from IT called ludicrously convenient. The audit team had imaged the servers already. If your strategy depends on erasing what someone else has already copied, you don't have a strategy. You have a tantrum. On Monday morning at 8 a.m., the company assembled again, this time in a room with more lawyers than engineers. The audit leader, a woman named Gaines with a voice like a level, stood at the front beside a screen that displayed a title in thin blue letters: Findings Preliminary. Gaines did not blink often. "Our review of payroll records, system logs, and auxiliary documentation indicates a pattern of systemic underpayment for hours worked beyond scheduled shifts. Evidence includes manual time edits, misaligned PTO conversions, backdated compliance flags, and internal communications instructing managers to label mandatory sessions as voluntary. There is a sound a room makes when it exhales the truth it's been holding in. It sounds like relief trying not to be joy." Gaines clicked to a slide. Numbers appeared. 8,172 hours suppressed over 24 months. Monetary equivalent at base overtime rate, 181,960, potential penalties and interest, variable pending jurisdiction. She looked up. This number does not include separated employees. Another slide. We found no credible evidence of a system glitch. We found multiple emails identifying the practice as a budget strategy. Those names have been provided to outside counsel. Keene tried to smile. Context matters. There were pressures. Gaines did not smile back. Pressure does not alter arithmetic. Someone clapped, loud, sharp. It grew into a sound not even a VP glare could stop. Braddock, the CEO, stood, thanked the audit team, and announced temporary leaves for both Talbot and Keene pending conclusion. The leaves were a courtesy. The conclusion would not be. After the meeting, people found me the way you find the person who says what you could not. Some hugged. Some cried and apologized for not speaking sooner. I told them the only thing that felt true: you don't owe me, we owe each other. That afternoon, HR posted new overtime procedures with automatic approvals tied to calendar invites, public dashboards, and a back pay schedule. The union that wasn't a union, our unofficial chat, lit like a Christmas tree. Someone pasted a screenshot of their bank app. Deposit, back pay. Someone else posted a photo of a whiteboard with the words, "We are not optional," in green marker. Ellen texted me a single line. Micromessage, truth beats threat. I typed back a photo of the binder on my desk. Better tools. The part they never show in the movies is the days after the win. The quiet. The paperwork. The way routine comes back like a tide that doesn't care what it covered yesterday. You go to your desk and the light still flickers. You log your time and the numbers don't lie anymore. And you don't know whether to laugh or cry that honesty feels like a novelty. Penny from IT brought cupcakes with blue frosting the color of the Helios logo and set them on the support bench. She whispered, "Legal told me the feds called about the file deletions." "What did you say?" She smiled. "I said our backups never go out of style." Mara, who had been so quiet for months, stood during a team stand-up and said, voice shaking, "I'm taking next Saturday off." She didn't ask. She announced. The way her shoulders dropped when no one argued will be one of the great sights of my life. Louis sent me a photo of his spreadsheet with the stolen tab marked closed. He titled a new tab paid and sent it to his wife, his mom, and his lawyer friend, because superstitions don't retire just because you won. On Thursday, Braddock recorded another video, eyes less tight now, saying the company would install an employee advisory group to oversee timekeeping and other equity measures. They asked me to join. I said yes. Then I asked for Penny and Mara and Janelle and Hector to join too. Decisions shouldn't be made by the person whose name shows up in a newspaper. They should be made by the people in the room when the lights flicker at 11:45 p.m. On Friday, I met with outside counsel for the audit, and they asked me the questions you ask to make sure a story is what it claims. When did the practice begin? Who used the word voluntary first? Did anyone threaten you? I handed them another copy of the binder and another drive, and I watched the expression they made when people who carry briefcases meet a truth they can take to court. The following Monday, someone peeled the voluntary efficiency poster off the break room wall and replaced it with a Department of Labor placard. It had a phone number on it and a section titled Your Rights. People read it like a menu they could finally afford. That night, I went home and put the binder on my shelf. It looked like a common object again. Not a weapon. Not a Bible. Just cardboard and paper holding a record of hours paid and unpaid, and what we did to turn the second into the first. Ellen came over with 2 coffees and an expression that contained something like pride. "So," she said, looking at the shelf, "is that how you're going to tell your kids what you did?" "I don't have kids." "You will. Or you won't. Someone will ask you anyway." "What will I tell them?" "That you wrote it down," she said. "That's all." "That's everything." We sat on my living room floor and listened to the hum of a city full of people who would go to work tomorrow and hope for an honest trade. Outside, the neighbor's TV leaked a game show laugh track. Upstairs, the couple with the heavy shoes argued about a trip they couldn't afford. Life doesn't pause to applaud your justice. But that night, I slept without the reflex of reaching for my phone at 3 a.m. to back up what I had already backed up. I slept without the taste of neon on my tongue. 2 weeks later, Helios held a company-wide Q&A. The new HR head, Raina, opened by acknowledging the findings and the back pay and the departures. Talbot had resigned to pursue opportunities, a phrase that meant pursue a lawyer. Keene stepped down and stopped smiling in press photos. Braddock announced his own retirement after a period of transition. The board chair used the words, "rebuild trust and listen." You can't fix what you won't name. Someone asked if there would be consequences for managers who labeled mandatory sessions as voluntary. Raina said, yes. Someone asked if the company would adopt a policy against scheduling launches on Fridays. Raina smiled like someone who had been on call for too many weekends and said, yes. Someone asked if the department would replace headcount with software again. No one said yes to that. Afterward, people lined up to speak to me. A custodian I had seen for years and never learned the name of shook my hand and said, my nephew works nights. He watched the video. He said to tell you he clocked out on time last night for the first time this month. A security guard leaned on his hip and said, you need anything? I'm there. You think you won by numbers until a human says anything, and you realize what you won was the permission to ask. That afternoon, my new payslip arrived. There, under earnings, a line read OT 1.5 secs with numbers I had never thought I'd see aligned with my name. I stared at it until my eyes blurred. Ellen texted, frame it, coward. I printed it and pinned it to my cube wall the way people pin baby photos. At 5:31 p.m., the office did something it hadn't done on a weekday in years. It emptied. The corridor echoed with a sound I had forgotten, laughter that wasn't apologetic. Someone yelled, we're going to the cheap burrito place. Someone else yelled, we can afford the good burrito place now. We went to the good place. We ordered the guacamole and didn't count the dollars. Mara ate slow, shoulders loose. Hector told us he'd rented a cabin for a weekend that used to belong to Helios. Janelle said she was blocking off a Saturday morning on her calendar and labeling it Do Not Summon. Penny wrote a script that sent a cheerful pop-up to every employee at 6 p.m. You've done enough for today. When Talbot set late meetings, she set the pop-up to play a tiny brass fanfare. We laughed. Then we made a rule. A joke is not enough unless it becomes a policy. Near the end of the quarter, Raina asked if I would speak at a new hire orientation. I said yes because I wanted the first story they heard to be the one where the company changes after people push, not before. I stood in a room with 20 faces who didn't know me and told them, you're going to hear a lot about velocity and sacrifice. Keep a record of what you give and expect a record of what you get. I pointed to the Department of Labor poster and said, that's not wall art. That's your receipt. A hand went up. Why didn't anyone speak sooner? Some did, I said, and named Lynn, who had tried years before and been made invisible for it. Most of us spoke in smaller ways. We needed each other to hear it. Another hand. Aren't you worried you'll be known as the troublemaker? I looked at my binder on the table and the pay slip on the wall and the people whose Saturdays were suddenly their own. If trouble buys back time, I said, then trouble is honest work. When the orientation ended, a manager from another division introduced himself, eyes bright with the look of a person carrying something heavy he was about to set down. He said his team had been running sprints that lasted months. He asked if we would share our process for tracking overtime and getting approvals. We sat on the floor and drew a plan on the back of the handout until our pens bled through. The next week, his team reported their first paid weekend in a year. The week after that, another team asked for the template, truth scales if you bother to print it. The last time I saw Talbot was not in a boardroom. It was at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the courthouse. He looked smaller without the stage around him. He lifted his cup like a truce. You won, he said, as if the word tasted bad. No, I said. We got paid. He looked out the window at a lady walking a dog in a sweater. You think this changes anything in the long run? It already did, I said. Ask the people at the burrito place. He smiled without humor. You think they'll remember your name? I hope not, I said. I hope they remember their own. He looked at me then in a way I had never seen in his glass office, without calculation. You could have taken the promotion. I took the Saturday, I said. He nodded as if those were the same currency, and we had agreed on a fair exchange. When he left, he put his cup in the trash and missed. I picked it up and put it where it belonged, not because I'm virtuous, but because I like the world better when things are where they should be. On the day the first back pay wave hit, I walked to the rooftop at sunrise. The city was a grid of tired lights going out and new lights waking up. I stood with my hands on the ledge and breathed in a morning that didn't taste like panic. My phone buzzed. A message from my mom with a photo of my dad smiling in physical therapy, his hand around a foam ball. He squeezed it 6 times today. 6! Somewhere in the ledger of the universe, a new column titled Enough got a number in it. Ellen joined me, hair pulled back, 2 cups of coffee balanced in one hand like a dare. We watched a bus trace a line down Market Street. "You did it," she said. "We did it," I said. She bumped my shoulder with hers. "Now write it down," I laughed. "It's written, not the hours," she said. "The part after." People forget the part after. So I went home and wrote this, and I put the binder back on the shelf, and I started a new one labeled Policy with the templates we made, and the scripts Penny wrote, and the emails Raina signed. I hope no one needs it. I know someone will. If you've ever stayed late with a timer running in your chest, if you've watched your effort evaporate into a word like voluntary, if you've felt small under a fluorescent sky, this story is not mine. It's yours. Keep a record. Ask a question. Borrow better tools. And when someone tells you that later is the right time to be paid, tell them now is the right time to be honest. This is revenge at the office, and sometimes the best revenge isn't fire. It's a paycheck that matches the hours you gave and the quiet that comes after. If this hits something true in you, subscribe. Not for me. For the next person who needs to remember that trouble done right is a way to balance the books.